the Minnesota Vikings select
JJ McCarthy.
He's JJ! JJ to JJ for the payday! Touchdown, Vikings!
How about that? Welcome back. Final hour, 9 to noon. That was part of last night's KFAN draft party, the Miller Lite Vikings draft party at U.S. Bank Stadium. A stadium full of people that lost their freaking minds as it was announced that the Vikings were taking JJ McCarthy, 10th overall in the first round of last night's draft. The highest the Purple have ever taken at QB in franchise history. Shortly after that, as part of it, though, it was PA, it was Pete Bursich, it was Charchie, it was Ben Lieber on stage manning the draft show. They were joined by head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, Kevin O'Connell. Let's listen back to that late night interview.
Head coach of the Minnesota Vikings set to join us now at the draft party. KOC, Kevin O'Connell. There he is on the big screen at U.S. Bank Stadium with that big old smile. He gets a quarterback. He gets an edge with 22 and a half sacks, 32 and a half tackles for loss at Alabama. Kevin, explain what you like so much about both these picks. Just take it away, man. This U.S. Bank Stadium ignited when you moved up for McCarthy, and then it was the same decibel level for Turner. So far, well done. What do you like?
Yeah, I think that decibel level might have been matched, in our draft room, going through some scenarios there and seeing kind of how things were unfolding to come away with JJ McCarthy, identify and go get that quarterback of the future that I was so excited about adding to our football team. Really, going back a long time, spending a lot of time with JJ throughout the process. And then you talk about Dallas Turner, to be able to still identify and for Kwesi to go find a way to go get, really one of the top defensive players we had on our board. It was a big time goal to add an impact, real impact player to our defensive front. So to know as of right now, we're going to be welcoming JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner to our team, meeting them tomorrow when they get here. I cannot wait to get these guys here. I've already gotten a ton of texts from our team and so many folks that are just excited to get these guys here and get them rolling. But a really big time night for us, and I do hope all of our fans kind of are sharing that same amount of excitement, because it's a big night for our football team.
I don't know how well you can hear it, but come on! You're super excited. Make a little noise in this building for JJ to JJ and a payday. All right, Pete Bursich, Kevin O'Connell.
Kevin, you look at JJ McCarthy. His sophomore year in high school, he won a state title. As a junior in college, he won a national championship. How many years is it going to take him to win a Super Bowl here?
Well, you know what? I know JJ has won a lot of football games. And when you meet him, you spend time around him. Obviously, you study the tape and know what he's capable of becoming. You get really excited, not only as the head coach, where you're really looking to identify certain types of players, the skill sets, all that, but also it's very important to me to know the people that we're bringing into this building as well. And JJ was a guy from the very beginning of the process. As many times as we spent time together at the Combine, and then when we took the trip out there to Ann Arbor and spent the day with them, we've stayed in touch since that trip. And I can tell you, JJ McCarthy, Vikings fans, is as excited as you are to have him. He's excited to be a Minnesota Viking, and I'm happy we were able to make it happen.
Paul Charchian.
Kevin, you're going to get this question a lot. Let's just get it out of the way now. Typically, quarterbacks that are taken in the top 10 end up starting early. And I know, obviously there's everything else has to unfold in the future now. But what is the messaging to Sam Darnold, Nick Mullins, and JJ McCarthy about your plans for looking at who ultimately starts and the timetable for these guys?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, we want to have a really productive offseason in our quarterback room, a lot of growth and development, and adding a guy like Sam to the room. He's already off to a great start these first 2 weeks of the offseason program. And Sam knows exactly, how I feel about him and the excitement I have for him being a Minnesota Viking. And he also understood that with the conversations that I had with him, that more than likely we were going to trying to add another quarterback to that room and a guy that we hope to build around for the future. But as far as I'm concerned, those guys' challenge is just to work every single day to be the best version of themselves, because our football team will benefit from that. And the same goes for Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall. I think the most important thing in that quarterback room, it's always going to be competitive, and we've got competitors in that room that are going to only make each other better on a daily basis. And every time we hit the grass, every time we're in that meeting room, that's going to be the intent. And that's never going to change. And we're going to continue to push forward and feel really good about that quarterback room.
All right, Ben Lieber, let's bring it on home.
Hey, Coach, congratulations, first and foremost. The one thing that when we all on the outside looking in, when we're trying to evaluate these quarterbacks, or really any other player, but specifically quarterback because they're so important, we can see all the stuff that we think that we like as far as the arm strength, the accuracy, the ability to move and throw off platform, all that stuff, right? But what we don't know is what you guys know about these guys between the ears. What do you like about JJ's approach to the game, the way he approaches life? Is he one of those guys that just is obsessed with football? Like, what is it, those intangibles that you like about JJ?
Yeah, first and foremost, it takes about 5 minutes of being around the guy to know he loves football. He loves the aspect of being a leader on a football team. He loves the aspect of trying to set the standard of what it takes to chase championships. And obviously he's had success at every level doing that. I think there is something to learning how to be successful with that kind of rate that he was able to do it. And I think, along that road, and JJ's still a young guy, and he's a guy that has a lot of room to grow and a lot of great football out in front of him. But he's also a guy that's very hungry. He's very smart. You mentioned the athleticism, arm strength, all the things that matter, obviously, when you're going to identify and select a quarterback, with the 10th pick in the draft. But those intangibles are huge, and they're big as you build not only that player up within your system, within your building, but also to know that this guy's going to be doing everything in his power on a daily basis to just continue to improve and be absolutely ready to go when his number's called.
So, Coach, one other follow-up. We're going to talk a lot about JJ, but I can't neglect Dallas Turner and getting your opinion on him. You guys moved up aggressively a bunch of spots with the Jaguars. At that point in time, there's only a couple of defensive players off the board, meaning there's a lot of really talented players, including cornerbacks that were on the board. What do you specifically like about Dallas?
Yeah, I think when you think about the players that were available kind of in that defensive front, whether you're talking D-line, edge players, inside backers, whatever you want to call it, he was one of a select few players that we really identified. And quite honestly, Ben did not think would be even remotely in play, where we had him graded, what we thought of him currently, but maybe more importantly than that, where we think he can go. I think he's got a ton of upside in Brian Flores' defense, the versatility to, number one, go get the quarterback and be a force on that edge. But he is, he's very dynamic, size, speed, length, all the things that you really look for when you're trying to project really hopefully an impact defensive player for a really long time for the Minnesota Vikings. We just felt like in that moment, knowing kind of, a little bit about maybe what was going to transpire in the next few picks as far as needs and things like that, we saw an opportunity to go get what we think is going to be a big-time impact player for us. And I really compliment Kwesi for going and getting it done.
That was wonderful, very exciting. Can't wait to see you out of the facility. And congratulations, I can tell by your face, as can U.S. Bank Stadium, an evening that has gone very well in the eyes of our coach, Kevin O'Connell. See you, Coach.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
How about that? That was head coach Kevin O'Connell joining PA and Charch and Lieber and Bursich at the Miller Lite Vikings draft party last night at US Bank Stadium. And from the head coach to the general manager, the guy that had to make the plays, make the decisions, not only moving up to 10 from 11 to get JJ McCarthy, but taking that jump to 17. Gotta have Dallas Turner, the general manager, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah.
General manager for the Minnesota Vikings, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, joins us from TCO Studios. Kwesi, packed house here at US Bank Stadium. Eruption after both the picks. You moved up twice, incredibly aggressive. How has the evening been so far for you executing your toil?
PA, it's always good to see you. And I just first want to say a great thank you to all our great fans for hanging with us. I'm glad we got to trade up so you guys could party a little bit sooner than pick 23. But no, it was exciting. We set out a plan. We had different, situations we wanted to end up with. This is one of our highest ones. Like I've said all the time, people always ask, is it about trading up or trading back? And it's just about the current situation, the player involved, how it impacts your team. And we found a unique opportunity to add two really good young players. And we can't be more excited.
Kwesi, I know you can't give away. I think if you played this thing out and you had played it out many times preparing for this draft, did you see this many offensive players going off the board so quickly? Which
we did.
Really put us in an opportunity to get the guy.
Yeah, I was surprised that Dallas was still there. We thought it would be a different situation where maybe we'd have to consider something different or as a different defensive player. But, we trusted our evaluation. You're talking about, these were franchise cornerstone type players at premier positions. You're talking tackle, wide receiver, quarterback, the positions that matter and cost a lot in the market. So we weren't surprised that teams, when push comes to shove, focus on those positions. There was a couple upsets, obviously. We can't deny that there was a couple upsets, but you always just got to be ready for an out, a quick out to an audible, whatever it is, to be ready.
Kwesi, you held out on JJ until pick 10. You felt like you needed to make that move then. Is it safe to assume the Jets had convinced you that there was another suitor, that you needed to make that move from 11 to 10 if you wanted McCarthy?
Yeah, I think I said it earlier today. And I did confirm with Joe that there was other teams involved, but I don't think it matters. I think you got to ask yourself, the player, what you think of the player, and had you started this out and somebody said, hey, would you want the player for the 11th pick, and what you gave up, you would have said yes 30 times, hands down. And so it's about minimizing regret, making sure you don't miss out on something potentially special for something that you would want to give up on. And you never know. It's uncertain what's behind door number 2 or behind the curtain. So you just got to be thoughtful about your valuations, pick your prices in advance, and know what your pain points are, and go from there.
So, Kwesi, we're talking up here about the totality of the moves of this draft, how it affects this year, but also we talked about next year and what that looks like. You gave up some draft picks for next year as well, and so you decrease the ability to get some college players in next year's draft as well. How much of does next year's salary cap, the amount of spend that you guys are going to have, I know that you still have to sign JJ and all this other, hopefully you guys sign JJ. I'm just going to put that out there that we are going to sign JJ. But the ability to have a lot more money to spend in free agency, how did that impact your decision-making today?
Exactly right. We don't look at these decisions in a vacuum. We look at these things in a 2-year time horizon. And so knowing that we have salary cap space, that's another avenue to good players. As you saw what we did this offseason, that's always something you can do every offseason, and we knew we'd be able to do it. So that's part of it. There's also just, obviously there's a potential for compensatory picks in the draft and different things we can do the rest of this draft to maybe, add picks this year or next year. But, also, we got a lot of good young players and people on this team that we like. So, there's potential that there's not a ton of roster spots in theory available next year.
All right, guys, a couple more for the GM. Let's fly, okay?
All right, Kwesi, tell us about what stands out about Dallas Turner. What makes him special?
Man, obviously when you first watch the film, you see a guy who's just scratching the surface, unbelievable off the ball, long, has a good speed to power move, can win around the edge, can bend, still working on his inside counter move, but has that ability too. Good in the run game. You talk about versatility as a dropper. Not just somebody that's, just goes and guards grass. Like, he knows the defense. He knows what all 11 are supposed to be doing. He blew us away in the combine interview. I mean, one of the best interviews from a intellectual standpoint from an outside backer I've ever been a part of. And competitive, from a great family, just everything about him. I'm still a little bit in shock that we have him, and just really excited that he's here.
Crazy.
Yeah, I imagine if you woke up this morning and somebody told you you're going to get both JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner, you'd have thought, there's like a 1% chance, right?
Well, we have some smart people here that told me it was a little bit more than that, but yeah, I knew it was a low probability.
Yeah, I bet. So, one more JJ question for you. A lot of the questions around JJ were apart because he had so much talent around him. Sure. You dropped JJ into a position where he's got Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson, bookend tackles, Jordan Addison. He drops into a spot where he's got proven successful players around him. How much of that played into your willingness to bring JJ McCarthy on?
Yes, absolutely. I think we're a very quarterback-friendly environment. This was part of the plan that we set in place 2 years ago to build something. Ultimately, you always want to lift up the quarterback. You want a guy that can overcome things, but also put the team around him that he doesn't have to. You don't want him to have to put the cape on all the time. So we knew that we were a very quarterback-friendly environment. Also, because Sam's here, and Sam, we think, is going to play really good football for us this year, and so we can be patient, work on the things we need to work on. JJ is super young, and we know that, and so we're gonna pour into him, get him to his 10,000 hours, and we're just excited about that room and what he brings to it. From a leadership standpoint, from a skill set standpoint, it's always funny when you go out to rookie minicamp. Jordan Addison, the first time you saw him, you know that looks different, and when JJ McCarthy's out there and he throws a football, you'll see it. That looks different too.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can't wait for that. So, last question for me, Kwesi, is we talk about big school pedigree. You've got a quarterback from Michigan, just won a national championship. You've got an edge rusher and an absolute dynamite player from Alabama. How much does that matter in your guys' evaluation about where these guys go to school?
Yeah, I don't know that it does in a first order correlation way, but obviously they're pretty good evaluators themselves, right? So it's that starts it, and then those schools play it against the best competition, so you get to see them on a day-to-day basis against players that are going to play on the next level, and you see our perform against them, and it's just a cleaner evaluation in that sense. But I don't know that the name on the jersey, on the front of the jersey, necessarily goes into it from a an intentional standpoint. But I think the other factors that are related to the school matter. Yeah, for sure.
With last one here, Kwesi, Dallas Turner's father has a very interesting basketball background. And he had a tryout with the Denver Nuggets after playing in the Finnish league or leagues. So I mean, Dallas, what is it, a 42-inch vertical here for Dallas Turner?
Yeah, he's as explosive as all get out. Yep. He's a good hooper. His mom's a great athlete too, if I remember correctly.
And secondly, anything up your sleeve for tomorrow?
I gotta go get some rest, but there's always ideas, man. We gotta try and make the team better as best as possible. So we'll see what happens.
Yes, sir. And thirdly, I mean, how about when you walk around that facility tonight or tomorrow, you take a quarterback for the play calling head coach, and you get an edge rusher for the super aggressive defensive coordinator. I mean, that's balancing the scales just perfectly. And congratulations on the evening. We can tell that you're happy, and we also can tell the Minnesota Vikings have become better after the first round tonight. Thank you, Kwesi.
Thank you. Everybody get home safe.
That's Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah with PA and Charch and Lieber and Bursich, all part of last night's Miller Lite Vikings draft party. What a blast that it was. Those interviews, by the way, the draft party itself, it's all podcastable. Get that free iHeartRadio app, exclusive Vikings channel, tons of Vikings draft-related content. And that we're just through day one. Whether it's Saucy and I tomorrow, you got worst-case scenario tonight with the Wolves bent into Game 3 on these airwaves. More draft coverage coming your way into the weekend. And more conversation about Kwesi and the moves that he made. PA and Charch return to the mix next segment, 9 to noon. But let me hit you with this before we go to break. The Fan and BigDeck.com, they want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand. Use the code BANK at KFAN.com. Might win $1,000 if you use the code BANK at KFAN.com.
Fan.
Funny thing last night, you
we might not have caught. But as we traded up for Dallas Turner, they were trying to guess who it was, and there were guesses it was going to be one of the cornerbacks or whatnot. But after we picked Dallas Turner, Daniel Jeremiah looked and said, God, I forgot that guy was even still on the board. So it's just so crazy that he was still there for us to move up to get the number one edge rusher. There's probably a top 5 or 6 guy in most drafts. It's just incredible. What a night.
Go PA, Steve in Florida. First, bravo to Kwesi. You're doing a great job, Kwesi. Great draft. But it feels so great to wake up and know that other teams are worried about us. And it's the other way around. Now, for the last couple of years, Detroit got a lot better. The Packers were way better. And the Bears are way improved. So it feels really good so that in our division, we're improving also. Yet way better.
Hey. All right. Strike up the band. 3-2.
GM is Kwesi. The GM is Kwesi. The GM is Kwesi. I believe.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
All right, with respect, the Minnesota Vikings 2022 draft looks like it's not working out. Doesn't mean that the players taken in 2022 cannot flip things around and take off. It wouldn't be the first time that's happened years 3 and on. But yeah, you look at Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and his staff's first draft 2022 left a little to be desired. 2023 draft, what do we have here, boys? Addison hit. Ivan Pace Jr. hit in for a college free agency, but then emphasis on the word free agency. Dean Lowry didn't work. He wasn't working, and then he got hurt. And now he's gone. Marcus Davenport was an epic swing and miss for myriad reasons. So now, all right, so we're playing from behind the proverbial 8 ball off the first 2 years. I think that's fair to say, analyzing it, from the drafts and free agency and stuff. Like Harrison Phillips has worked out okay, and so on and so on. Byron Murphy Jr., I thought he worked out okay. But then you get to 2024 free agency. And the mantra 9 to noon was, it's clear the general manager has emptied the proverbial chamber in free agency, all right, because they had money to spend in free agency, which is part of a mandate, edicts, or whatever when he was hired. I'm going to get the roster younger, and I'm going to find us money in free agency. All right, well, that's happening. And, so therefore, with Grenard and Van Ginkel, Cashman, Aaron Jones, Sam Darnold, and so on, including Jerry Tillery, well, we'll see how this whole thing works out. But it seems like it's heading in the right direction. Then you get to last night and the way things maneuvered last night, which by a majority of local, if not national accounts, is if we're going to grade a draft, these guys hit the home run of all home runs, and they got a quarterback, which they needed. So whether somebody likes JJ McCarthy or not this year or next year, everybody is raving about where they got Dallas Turner, the edge from Alabama. And in closing here on the trajectory, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, first-time general manager, is heading, and the team is heading from a trajectory standpoint, it seems to be quite positive. And it's eyeballing situations or people and saying no and not budging and not having to be personal. That's very difficult. Like eyeballing Dalvin Cook and saying, you just had a phenomenal year, but you got to go. And then Dalvin fell off. Same with Eric Kendricks, fell off. Adam Thielen. Now, Adam had a wonderful year, given the circumstances for Carolina. Yeah. But then you mesh it with the purported money that was required. That all plays into it, too. So there's that one. But also, when another team, perhaps the Las Vegas Raiders, who may or may not have, but I believe they were coveting Michael Penix Jr. So therefore, he goes to Atlanta under the cover of darkness. All right, well, if you believe that's the team that was in on pushing hard for McCarthy, right, or maybe Denver, but I've been led to believe it was more Las Vegas, and holding your ground and handling that with aplomb to get what you absolutely wanted, that's quite impressive. And also put the Cousins bid in there. I mean, there was a line of delineation where we are not going over this.
and then it went astronomically over with $100 million guaranteed. But it's still not easy to look at a top 10, 9, 8-ish quarterback in the NFL and say, we ain't going to budge. We ain't going to do it. So this is all beginning to bear its fruit for somebody who willingly and openly will say, look, I'm more comfortable with rulers and calculators. All right. This is what I do and how I mesh it with the analytics team, the football methodology team. I think that's what it's called. And the coaching staff and the scouts who break down film. So the trajectory seems like it's heading the right way.
We've talked about this on and off for several years about Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Effectively, 2 years ago was his rookie year, and he was very, very raw. He had not a lot of NFL experience. You were hiring him more for talent than production, past production. You have to put this into very player-like terms. Last year and the first year draft was bad. Last year's draft got better. This year's draft, at this moment, as we are post round one, nothing to do on Friday night, it feels good. It feels like Kwesi is getting better in his third year. The progression feels like it's happening. Now, it could be that we're wrong. It could be that JJ McCarthy's not going to work out. Dallas Turner's not going to work out. We're going to wish we had all these picks back. Maybe we're wrong. But in this moment, it feels like Kwesi's getting better, getting his arms around this job. Almost like an NFL player might take 3 years to develop. Our general manager may have needed 3 years to really get to where he needed to be to best serve this team.
But it's when you have somebody with Kwesi's background, football development, and that was the role with Shanahan and Lynch with San Francisco. It was part of a developmental team. But it was a developmental team that focused on analytics and things like that. With Andrew Berry in Cleveland. Now, I read this online. I haven't talked to Kwesi about it, so I'm a roll that it's true. But like Jimmy Johnson's antiquated draft chart, like everybody had been like, this needs to be updated. This needs to be updated. Well, Kwesi updated it and developed a draft chart, however it's done. Points, rules, I have no idea. But it's one that teams use, including the Vikings. So one thing that I'm really, really finding myself impressed with at this moment is the things the non-traditional hire was supposed to be good at. Okay, taking the emotion out of things, eyeballing scenarios or people, and holding your ground because you believe it's in the best interest of the team. Getting the roster younger, and then, we've said it before, but, the assumption here is they will have Justin Jefferson signed and maybe even before the season. But even with that and whatever grandiose nature comes with it, they still are going to have $75 to $90 million to spend in free agency. So now he's peddling all these picks, and I would never speak for him or the team when I say this, but I'm not going to say he devalues draft picks in a way no general manager in the history of the NFL has done, but he's finding a blend between draft picks and the importance of having free agency money while, like the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Bears or whatever, the same teams always have 90 to 140 million to spend. The Commanders, well, they're always awful. Jacksonville's turned it around of late. A team to have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill, Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator, and so on, and then to have free agency money to amplify it while, you're able to hit a draft like yesterday. It's the ascension is duly noted.
So next year, the team's without a second-round pick, third-round pick, and fourth-round pick. And by the way, we should mention, the full in on Dallas Turner is more than it feels like because it's really the Houston trade and it's what we paid last night. So the full in on Dallas Turner is pick 167 this year, a third next year, a fourth next year, a second next year, and the second this year. I mean, the full in on Dallas Turner really is expensive.
Right.
But potentially worth it because you've got a player that most people believe is one of the 10 best players in this draft.
But Charchie, I wonder if there was team or teams involved in that 17 spot. It's like it's in vogue to ask, all right, did you have to battle somebody for the quarterback?
Yeah.
I haven't read or heard, hey, did you have to battle somebody? Were there teams involved in that 17 trying to get him? Because it seems like maybe they were, and it's like, okay, well, we'll throw this in. Yeah. All right, Jacksonville's all right, bet settled. And what I said last night at the draft party, I do believe matters, where it's familiarity can breed contempt, but it also can help you in moments like this, where less than a year ago, Kwesi and the team dealt with Jacksonville in trading Ezra Cleveland. So there's a familiarity and a trust there, that I definitely think helped in this moment. Now, when we return, and in the final segment, a man named Thor Nystrom, who was guiding the JJ McCarthy bandwagon, for about 6 months, he'll tell us what he thinks, and we'll learn a little more about the Michigan quarterback after this.
We were live and loud at our Vikings draft party.
JJ to JJ for the payday.
Thank you, fans. From the audio home of the Vikings, KFAN.
Touchdown, Vikings!
Final segments and the wraps on the show are always brought to you by Casey's. Casey's Rewards, getting deals on food and fuel just for being a loyal customer. And, of course, all-time elite Hall of Fame level pizza, thin and original crust. Casey's Pizza is amazing. Stop into a Casey's today. Thank you.
I can't wait until tomorrow. 'Cause tomorrow might very well be too late. I can't wait until tomorrow.
The leader of the JJ McCarthy bandwagon chirped at the Clydesdales, yeah, and said run, and by golly, JJ McCarthy ran right here. Here is Thor Nystrom. This will be his third appearance in the last week or 2 weeks and change, 9 to noon, because he has been our JJ McCarthy intel machine. He's a co-host of Fantasy Football Weekly with Paul Charchian. And Thor, PA and Charch here, I would imagine you were quite elated how things went last night.
1,000%. Yeah, I mean, for Vikings fans, we're not used to necessarily nights like last night where the sky opens up and manna falls from heaven. But what a night on both accounts, both with McCarthy and then also the board falling the way it did. Two teams make egregious mistakes with quarterbacks, in my opinion, with Michael Penix and Bo Nix. And then what happened with the offensive lineman getting pulled up, the effect of that was pushing the defenders down the board. So you had this opportunity arise where Dallas Turner, who the entire process, the sportsbooks had as the odds-on favorite to be the first defender off the board against the entire field. Wow. Even 48 hours before the draft, he was minus 125 against the entire field to be first defender off the board. Was available way later than we all thought he would. Kwesi struck. I mean, what a night for the Vikings.
And to get those two guys, Thor, without giving up next year's first-round pick. I mean, if I'd have told you going into the night the Vikings are somehow, improbably, going to end up with J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner and still have your first-rounder next year, you'd have thought I was crazy, right? Like, impossible.
Totally. Yeah, because if you had said that, and then you're like, it's going to happen via two trades, what is the cost going to be? It would have been like, well, they're going to blow up their draft next year. They're going to have to give up the rest of their picks this year, and they're going to have to blow up their 2026 draft to do that. You're certainly going to have to give up your first rounders the next couple of years. The fact that they were able to retain the first rounders the next couple of years, I don't care about the perceived that they gave up slightly more on who cares in the Jaguars thing? Dallas Turner went far later again than anyone thought he would go. In the slot that they ended up getting him, he's an enormous value. So, like, to me, that's great. And, of course, retaining that 2025 round one pick, just a bonanza all the way around.
And Thor Nystrom can be found via Twitter @ThorKU, @ThorKU.
Now, your love of JJ McCarthy, I think, is familiar now to almost everybody who's listening because we've had you on several times. You've articulated here. You've put it on the Fantasy Football Weekly podcast. You had him graded as your number 2 quarterback overall, correct?
Number 3, and
thank you.
But also number 3 overall on my board, but
Okay.
just slightly behind Jaden Daniels. I had those guys neck and neck.
Yeah, so you preferred him over Drake May anyway.
For sure.
Yeah. So,
and well, just with Drake May quickly, it's if you believe that the Vikings would have been interested in trading up with New England, and I don't have any reason to believe, specifically off O'Connell a week ago at that church, talking about, that another team has to be complicit too, and I'm going to send a bouquet of flowers to Robert Kraft. So yeah, they and the McCown tide, they very well could have been interested. I just wonder, I wonder if New England would say no, or just 4 first-round picks and we'll answer the phone. I wonder what the potential compensation would have been where Adolfo Mensa clearly said no. But anyway, Charge.
Yeah, I mean the cost to move up for May was going to be astronomical. What do you think about Kwesi holding to his guns and not moving to 4, 5, 6, 7, and paying a lot more? Kwesi must have, and the front office must have really felt like there was this scenario where they weren't going to have to move much to get McCarthy.
You know that moment in Anchorman where he's like, today vindication is spelled R-O-N. Today vindication is spelled K-W-E-S-I. Yeah. The people that have, criticized Kwesi in the past drafts and everything, that move, we talked about this during the process of, you have to gauge the intention of the other 31 players at that poker table. The Giants, in this situation in particular, because if you could gauge that the Giants were bluffing about that they would take the 4th quarterback off the board,
right,
then you wouldn't have to trade into the 4th pick or the 5th pick. You could lay back and wait. And if you knew the Falcons were going to do something dumb, that you could wait back even a little bit more. He gauged all of that correctly, got the guys at the correct price point, was able to retain all that the draft equity that he has in the future as far as the enormous assets with the round 1 picks. Just an absolute masterstroke by Kwesi. So now you have these building blocks on both sides of the ball, quarterback position. Then, of course, your marquee edge rusher on the other side. You have that first-round pick next year. Of course, this coming season is the year where it's sort of the reboot year. So we don't exactly know how this team will be this coming season. You have to carry the most dead cap hit in the NFL. But then after that, next offseason, Vikings projected to have most cap room in the entire NFL. And then you have these exciting young players as well. That's where the fun truly begins. This is setting up to go really, really well for the future for the Vikings. I think it's a really exciting time.
Beautifully stated. Thanks for all the run on the radio show at Thor KU. Bless you, my brother, and have a good weekend, okay?
Appreciate you, boys.
Thanks, Thor.
With the master stroke reference and the adoration of the GM, there's only one way to end the show. This is PA in charge, Nordo by our side. Have a wonderful weekend.
The GM is Kwesi. The GM is Kwesi. The GM is Kwesi. I believe.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.